Okay, hi, my name is James Leone. I'm CPA, certified public accountant in California. I've been using Linux about 50 years now, about 10 years, and right now I'm in the latest version of Ubuntu 11.04, and I've done other presentations on how various accounting programs that are applicable to the American certified public accountant industry can run to various degrees in Linux. But I'm going to show in this situation, this one particular situation, where we have the ability to access our older client files and print them and even modify them if we needed to way back with both Lacerte, and I'm not going to endorse Wine on this one because it has printing problems. At least now, it used to. Back in 2003, you could print from Lacerte 02 and not have a problem, and you can access files on the network. You actually would be able to run an accounting firm in the year 2003 with a Linux system and all the right bits and pieces in place, at least with all the things that we used back in 2003. But I digress. Okay, so what are we looking at? It doesn't apply to ProSystem. I have not yet been able to get one working ProSystem, you're behind ProSystem, in Linux under Wine. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the past 3 years, Wine to me seems to have gone downhill or is stagnant in its development, unfortunately. Bottles and all that stuff aside, it just hasn't really gone anywhere, whereas in 2003 I was able to run Caseware 2000 and use it fully functionally, and since then the newer, I've never had Caseware 2003 or later versions be able to run properly under Wine. Caseware 2000 still does, but I don't know, maybe I'm picking the wrong version of Wine. Maybe I'm picking the Windows XP version and I should be picking the Windows 2000 or 98, I'm not sure, but anyway, let's get on to this thing. Okay, so we've been using, in our accounting firm, we've been using Lacerte since, I think probably 92. I came to this accounting firm probably sometime in, and I'll also show you the benefits of other benefits of one of. I've been at this accounting firm since probably 1996. Is when I think March 1996 is when I started. Okay, so of course you have to have DOSemu actually installed on your machine. I may have even done a presentation on this, I'm not sure. But anyway, right now the way I have it set up is inside your home directory there is a .dsemu folder, and there's one folder called Drive C, and as you may have guessed, this is actually everything that would be on the C drive had you just a DOS installation on a computer somewhere in the exact same places. Now, if you want to have other drives, and you can, especially a network drive, especially a Samba network drive, you can place in the other drives folder, for example, a symbolic link to everything on your Samba server. Now, symbolic link is not a big deal. It's like a shortcut in Windows, and it's using the ln/s command, and I always get this backwards. It's either the file path to where you want. See, what I have to, in this case, I had to make a folder called E. So either you put, home username .dosemu drives E first, and then home user, and then mount point to the server, because the mount point works just exactly like the loop function. I pick a folder by which I want to mount this other file system. In the case where I was doing the floppy disk data rescue procedure, it was home James mount image, and once I mounted the image file, all the files would appear in the image directory, and I unmounted it would disappear because it was accessing. Okay, so this right now, my mount point in my case is home James, Morton Associates, and Dell. Okay, and that takes place through another procedure. It's a Samba client. It's a simple script you have to add when you boot up to get it to boot up every time. Although I have to look into how to get it to work in Upstart rather than using the Debian procedure. But I digress. So I'm not going to do that presentation right now. But I do have an established mount point here, and I've already, in setting this up, I guess I'm digressing here. I did the ln minus s command, and then home james.dos. I might have this backwards. If I have it backwards, or if you get an error, file already exists, then switch them around. Okay, good. What I mean by switch them around is you don't put the home james.dosemu first. You put the file that already exists first. So I'm actually, in this case, by running this command, you're actually making a file, just like when you make a shortcut on your desktop. Shortcut to the F drive. That's the same thing you're doing, but it's just with the command line. Okay. Why the command line? Because I feel like it. Okay. Don't complain. I'm kidding. No, I don't see there's any really good tool to actually. It doesn't. I right click here. It doesn't say create symbolic link, and sometimes it's not a good idea to do it that way. It just won't work, especially when you're dealing with just files. And I'm actually going to do another presentation showing the trick I used to get a very old version of an FTP program to run on the server. I'll get to that in a second. Why? Because I didn't want to mess the config file anymore. That's why. Okay. On every upgrade. Okay, so what was my point? Let's go back to the .dosemu folder, which is somewhere, but it escapes me. Right there. Okay. So now, just to go back. Now, in general, basically, when programs were installed, when you were back in the days, you used DOS. It was just basically an exercise of copying all the files into the places where they belong. It didn't have a registry, and what you do is you go to the command prompt and you cd to whatever directory you're in, and you type whatever command the program required for you to get to launch, and it would launch. That's the case here. Now, in DOSemu, which I'll get to in just a bit, but basically the situation is once you have one of these C drives set up, you can actually make a copy of it onto the network, have an archive, and all you have to do on your next desk, that's right, is you just install your Linux, and then you put this directory, you put all these files and folders into the drive C folder that already exists, and all your stuff's installed and you don't have to do it again. And guess what? For these Lacerte, you say, well, what happens to all the user data? Well, I've got an answer for you, buddy. All the data files are on the network, and this Lacerte setup points to retrieving the data off the network. So when I copy this setup into somewhere else, it doesn't overwrite the data. In that situation, there are other situations like my, I'm pretty sure I have, or had, I have to go find it. I actually have a tax program in here from 1991, TurboTax, that I had back when I was a young whippersnapper back in, I was 21 years old, back in Glendale, California, doing the tax force, which all of our clients were mostly our friends or family. First year I ever did tax prep was long before I ever became a CPA. But I kept all the files for it, and I put it in here, and guess what? God damn it, I could run that thing. I should probably even look for it, because there should be a folder in here called TT1040. Let's see if I have that backed up somewhere. Probably bore you to death with this. Well, any delay here is pretty much has everything to do with me not knowing where the backup is right away, but I'll go ahead and get that. Believe me. Okay, oh, by the way, now if you're thinking that DOSemu will be a solution for Windows 3.1, it's not. That you're probably going to have to do through VirtualBox, and that you're probably going to have, that's right, with these newer machines, you're going to have a, unless you want to waste an entire DVD to get 1.14 megabytes worth of a floppy drive burnt to it, which is stupid. I don't know about USB drive. Anyway, you got to be able to have DOS on something to run, and I bet you're probably going to have one of these little image files mounted and ready to boot from to set up Windows 3.1, even in VirtualBox. Okay, so let's get to this. Let's just get to showing what I can actually do. Why don't we do that? So I have this little icon here called the DOS emulator. And there we are. So I'm in there, I'm in DOS. Okay. So I'm going to change directories over to Lacerte. And I'll just see, what do I got in here? Oh, I have 93 tags, so why don't I go to that? Now, let me tell you what the situation here is before I started. Okay, so we have our primary tax program, at least right now, is ProSystem. And ProSystem can only run 10 consecutive years at a time. As far as my own little history is concerned, when I first started using ProSystem, that was back in 1996, I believe, or 7. Before that, we used Lacerte for everything here at this accounting firm. We had a merger that we were in for about a year, then we got out of. And that other firm used ProSystem, so we adopted ProSystem for most of our clients, except for the not-for-profits and a select few that like the look of the Lacerte printout for whatever reason, or employees that just wanted to use Lacerte for their own reasons. Anyway, for ProSystem, you're only allowed to have those 10 years, and in 1997, ProSystem came out with a 32-bit version of their program. And so on our system, on one of our systems, to be able to access all of our client files, we have the 97 through 2006 ProSystem clients all stored on one computer, a different computer than the current set of programs for 2007, 8, 9, and 10, and then that'll go on until 2016. In the meantime, if we want to get to our 97 through or 1997 through 2006 client files, since you can't on one client workstation, you can't have two different setups of ProSystem unless you do a workstation setup, reboot, and then when you're done with that, go back, do another workstation, reboot, and then you have to log as an administrator for good security. It's just so tedious. We have a we actually have a computer with just that installed with Windows 2000 on it that's on VNC. So I could run VNC both in Linux and Windows, and I can access that desk and I can run those programs, I could print them out. And VNC is just, it's like go to my PC. You're using a remote computer from your desk. Okay. Now the problem that I ran into with Windows 2000 is that it was able to handle, we stopped using Lacerte at the end of the 2008 tax year. But we have, client files for every year going back to 93 in Lacerte, and we want to be able to access them, at least to be able to print the files and then scan them and have them scanned away and have them accessible. Get the older files out of this off-site storage company that we have, just storing huge boxes of things for us that we could better, we're in a better situation, not having to pay that monthly fee and having all these documents scanned and accessible in a PDF form. Okay, so anyway, the problem I ran in with Windows 2000 is that by the time I got to Lacerte, let's see, I think it was 97. Lacerte 96 just wouldn't install right on Windows 2000. It was too early. The compatibility finally broke down to that stage. But the good news is that Lacerte had, as late as 93, and this was 2 years before Windows 95 had come out, the ability to install the program from 93 through 96, even though Windows 95 had come out, as a DOS program. Because back then Windows 3.1 was DOS based. It was just a window manager running in DOS. Windows 95 was almost like that, but not exactly. And so anyway, I was able to actually install Lacerte 93, 94, 95, and 96 in DOSemu here, and with that symbolic link to the files on the server, I'm actually able to load the client files that are stored on the server and have this nice setup that I can copy over to other Linux desks, as long as DOSemu is installed and has been run once, at least once, before you copy the files in. Otherwise it'll just pave over everything. So I have a backup of this setup, and I'm in good shape. And even if I lost my whole Linux partition, I wouldn't be in any trouble. It's never happened to me before, but if I did, I'd still be able to reinstall Linux, reinstall DOSemu, copy down the folders for the basic setup, and be able to access all these client files and print them out, which is a benefit. And prior to 93, this firm used Accutax, which basically means you fill out a form, send it into Accutax, and they send it back to you. There's no program involved here at the office. And so basically every year that we've had a tax program that we've had client data stored in, we have access to that data and can print it out and even modify it. So anyway, so I've gone into the Lacerte directory and CD'd into 93 tax and 93 tax and press enter. The only bug is that there's a little black box that comes up. You press enter a couple times for whatever reason, and eventually it comes up. So here is for the old timers. We have let's go into one of these. Anyway, here it is. And if I were to go into hit F2 and print, it's exactly everything we had before in DOSemu, fully functional, all that in a bag of chips. Okay, so we're out of there. Now, there are other programs that are actually were not year specific, but were of pretty good general use, pretty good general everyday use for people, right? That one was ATB4 and ATB write-up. Now, what happened is I think it was around the year, just around the Y2K scare. The people from ATB decided they no longer. The AICPA, I think, contracted into it to make this program, and eventually the AICPA, who owned the rights to the program, sold it to Thomson PPC, and they ported it over to Windows 98 or 95, Windows 2000, and the program just didn't have as many features, just didn't work as well, and frankly, the printout didn't look as good. Now, maybe I was just used to seeing the way the printouts were back then, but and the import feature just wasn't as powerful as it used to be. They rewrote some parts of the program. Obviously, some other parts were ported over, And we ended up not even using that program very long, and we ended up going with Caseware very quickly thereafter. And we've been using it ever since. But, so Thomson kind of lost our business because they didn't really port all the features that the old ATB had. And specifically, one feature was the ability that's very useful that I haven't seen in any program since, is you could, let's say you have an ASCII import file from a client. Basically, a trial balance at the end of the day, of course, is a set of account numbers, account names, debits, and credits. You know, debits equaling credits. And your client may or may not have the same account numbers that you use, or their program may force it into a certain format that isn't really compatible with ATB. Well, the ATB's import feature actually had the way you could say, okay, I'm talking about, see, when an import takes place, basically it brings up a file where the different parts of the data, such as the account number, is in a actually specific location relative to the other sets of data. So you have the account number, account name, debit, credit, and they're all going to be delimited either by exact spaces between each other, or maybe on the 50th space on the line, the account name will appear always. And for every, so you go down to line 2, the 50th space over from the left is going to be the beginning of the account. That's why it knows how to bring it in. It was able to actually insert a space in the account number area, and so if you had a client that used DAC Easy that had, you know, for the higher level account, or you know, the higher level accounts 5 digits and lower level accounts 4 digits, it was actually able to compensate for that, and it was able to handle divisions very, very well. And it had one assumption that I still think Caseware should probably use, or allow the users to use, is that the account numbers are higher than a certain range, say 399.99, it's a profit and loss account, and if it's below that, it's a balance sheet account. And so it basically worked very well, very easy. And anyway, so I'm talking about it an awful lot, but I still miss this program. But I have the ability to actually use it. And this is 11 years after it was last released in this form. There were 2 forms of ATB write-up. One was ATB write-up 2. Now, back in the day, this was released on the machines that were out then. This used to be very slow. It would take a long, long time to calculate a change to a financial statement or whatever. And as you can see here, the only and by the way, the only Y2K problem that really you can see at all on this program is that instead of saying it's 2011, I'll say it's 1911. That's it. And of course, I have this also pointed to the network, so our client files are actually accessible here. And that's that. We also have ATB4, which some of our client data was on there too. And so we can go all the way back to the years prior to us even using Caseware, and we can look at the trial balances back then for whatever reason, or print them out, scan them, whatever. That is, if we want to keep data that long, but it isn't out of our reach. It isn't like something that we're not said, well, we weren't going to use it anyway and just walk away from it. We actually have the capability to get to it if we want to. Okay, what else do I have on here? There's one that oh, okay. Here's one. Now, are these programs the best things since sliced bread? Is there a reason why people prefer to use mouses over DOS programs? Well, when Windows first came out, I thought, well, okay, you're clicking versus typing the letter W. You can make batch files in DOS, and you can have it boot up, and you can make it so you type the letter W and you go right into WordPerfect. for example. Now, what's in that directory to make this thing start? CV. I don't think so. Oh, WP. And there's my WordPerfect. So if you want to use WordPerfect, you can. Even though I thought WordPerfect was horribly, it's what VI is today in Unix systems. It just, you know, how the heck do you even shift F6 and, you know, all this other crap? But I think Alt F will work and all that other good stuff. Yes, it does. I don't know the difference between. I'm not saving anything. Yes, oh, makes it work perfect. Okay, what else other surprises do I have in here? Now, there's another ancient program that would make any geek/CPA quiver in delight, but I'll get to that in a second. Because it was ancient even when I was using it. God. Called FR, but I'll get to that in a second. Let's go to an older version of Quickbooks. How about that? Let's see what Quickbooks used to look like. What do I have to execute here? QB. There we go. Hey! And you know what? It isn't the newest version of QuickBooks doesn't have any more features than this DOS version. Okay, I am going to get out. Okay. Well, how about Quicken? No, this is of no benefit. This is just for nostalgia. There's my Quicken. Okay, now let's go into FR, because that thing was a monstrosity. It used to be in an IGC directory, and last time I tried this, it really didn't work right. I think it had to run off its own hard drive, or maybe I'm looking at the Telrad phone system. I'm not sure. We'll find out. And that required it had its own actual hard drive in the computer to drive, to work. Run cob. I'm really wondering whether that's the last time I did this. 2002. COBOL system. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, this is the Telrad. Actually, that's the Telrad. The old Telrad phone system. I'm probably not going to be able to get out of this, but guess what? Doesn't matter. Don't need to reboot the computer. I just close the window and restart, and everyone is happy, including myself. So, that's it for the old, having access to the old programs. Just by the way, just for, I know earlier I had Lacerte 2008 running in Ubuntu under Wine before, but I'm also going to just show Lacerte 99 here. The problem I had last time I tried is there's some kind of problem with getting this thing to print. And it's not because, and in DOSemu you have to have one printer that is called LP. It'll print to that printer. Anyway, I don't want to go into the ins and outs of all that. So I think I'm done here.